All right, today we're tackling something huge, mastering your emotions. And hey, the goal here isn't to just, ignore what you're feeling. Nope. It's about understanding those feelings and using them to live a better, more balanced life. It's really about taking the reins on the one thing you actually can control, and that's what's going on inside your own head.
So let me ask you something. Have you ever, just exploded in a moment of anger or frustration, and then later you're just kicking yourself wishing you could hit rewind? Yeah, we've all been there. Emotions are, of course, a huge part of being human, but when they're in the driver's seat, man, they can steer us into some serious regret.
But here's the thing. What if you could actually change that pattern? What if you had a toolkit, right? Something to help you stop just reacting all the time, and instead really understand your emotions, manage them, and maybe, just maybe, use them to your advantage. Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, we gotta go back, like way back. It turns out a lot of our modern-day stress and anxiety, it's not really new. It's actually coming from this ancient survival software that's still running in our brains. Just think about it for a second. For our ancestors, life was basically a 24/7 survival mission. Their brains got incredibly good at spotting danger. A twig snapping in the forest, a weird look from someone in another tribe. Missing one of those clues could literally be the end, and that's our negativity bias. Fast forward to today, and we've still got that same wiring. Only now, instead of a saber-toothed tiger, it's a critical email from our boss that sets off all the alarms. Our brain fires up that same ancient fight-or-flight response over something that, let's be honest, isn't going to kill us.
And what about that awesome feeling you get from buying something new? That shiny new phone, a new car? That buzz is real, for sure. But it doesn't last, does it? There's a name for this: hedonistic adaptation. Basically, we all have this sort of happiness set point. Getting something new gives us a little boost, but sooner or later, we just drift right back to where we started. It's exactly why trying to buy happiness is pretty much a losing game.
This brings us to some really cool research by Sonia Lyubomirsky that breaks down where our happiness actually comes from. So get this, about half of it, 50%, is just baked into our genes. And only 10%, just 10, comes from our external circumstances, our job, our bank account, that kind of stuff. But that leaves this massive 40% chunk. And that is totally determined by our internal state, our thoughts, our actions, our perspective. That 40%, my friends, is where all the magic happens. That's our playground.
So, okay, if our circumstances aren't the main driver of happiness, then what is? This right here is the absolute core of everything we're talking about today. It's not the events in our lives that make us feel a certain way. Nope. It's the story we tell ourselves about those events, our interpretation. That's the filter for our entire reality.
Let's put this into a real-life scenario. Imagine a woman named Katie. She's at work and she hears a rumor. Layoffs might be coming. Her instant gut reaction is, oh no, this is a huge problem. And what happens? Bam! Her stomach drops, her heart starts racing, she's flooded with fear and anxiety. That one single thought, that story she told herself, just hijacked her entire emotional state.
But what if she hits the pause button? What if Katie actually challenges that initial panic? What if she tries to reframe it, to tell a different story? She could think, you know what? Okay, maybe this is actually an opportunity. Maybe this is the push I need to go find a job that I actually love. Do you see what happens there? Just by changing the narrative, the fear starts to melt away. And what's left? A little bit of excitement, a sense of possibility. It's the exact same situation, but a completely different feeling.
And here's another one, a mental trap we all step in. When things go south, it's so easy to go to that place of, well, of course this happened to me, or I guess this is just my lot in life. But thinking like that, that's like building your own prison. It makes you feel completely powerless, like you're just a victim waiting for the next bad thing to drop.
So what's the empowering alternative? It's this thought: I am responsible for my life. Now hold on, this is not about blaming yourself when bad stuff happens. Not at all. It's about taking ownership of how you respond to it. And that little shift in thinking, it puts you right back in the driver's seat of your own life. You're not just along for the ride anymore. You're the one holding the map.
And man, there's so many of these limiting stories we tell ourselves, right? I have to make everyone happy. The future is terrifying. There's nothing I can do. Every single one is just a story. And the big takeaway here is this: once you get good at spotting these stories, you can start rewriting them. And when you rewrite the story, you totally change the feeling.
Okay, so changing our thoughts is a game changer, for sure. But let's be real, it's not always that easy, especially when you're already caught up in a really strong emotion. So what do you do in the heat of the moment? You need a practical tool, something to help you just
let go.
Our first instinct usually is to just shove those feelings down, bottle it all up. But we all know that doesn't work, right? Suppressing anger or sadness, it doesn't make it vanish. It just lets it simmer and get worse. The real trick is to observe the emotion without becoming it. Let's say Penelope gets corrected by her boss and feels totally embarrassed. Instead of drowning in that feeling and thinking, I am so stupid, she can learn to create a little distance and think, okay, I am feeling embarrassment right now.
And this is such a simple but powerful little language hack that helps you do just that. It's the huge difference between saying, I am sad, which makes it your whole identity, and saying, I feel sadness. See? That treats it like a passing weather system. You're not the storm, you're the sky that the storm is passing through. That tiny, tiny change in words creates a massive shift in how you see it.
So here's a really effective technique for this. It's called the Sedona method. It's just a series of questions you ask yourself. First, you just bring to mind the feeling you want to let go of. Really feel it. Then you simply ask yourself, could I let this feeling go? It's a yes or no question. It just opens up the possibility. Then the next question is, would I let this go? This is about your willingness. Are you actually up for it? And the final question, when? The only answer really is now. And you just repeat that little cycle as many times as you need to. It's so simple, but it's an amazing way to just release that emotional baggage.
All right, so we've been talking a lot about how to handle difficult emotions, but this all leads to a final, really big shift in how we think about them. What if our emotions aren't the enemy we need to fight? What if they're actually messengers we should be listening to?
Think of it this way. Your emotions are just data. They're signals from your internal compass. That feeling of constant stress or frustration, it's not just random noise. It's probably a big flashing sign telling you that something in your life, maybe your job, maybe a relationship, is just not right for you. Take Harriet, for example. She was just chronically stressed out. When she finally paid attention to that feeling, she realized she needed a change, moved to a new city, and found she was way happier. Her stress wasn't the problem, it was the message.
And here's a super simple way to check in with yourself on this. It's called the above or below the line idea. When you're living above the line, you're in a conscious, open state. You're curious, you take responsibility, you're learning. But when you're below the line, you're basically on autopilot. You're blaming other people, you're complaining, you're getting defensive. One state feels open and expansive, the other feels tight and closed off.
So the actual practice here is just to check in with yourself during the day. Just pause and ask, hey, am I above the line or below the line right now? And this isn't about judging yourself. It's just about awareness. If you notice you're below the line, that's your cue. It's a little alarm bell telling you, hey, maybe it's time to get curious about why. And maybe even use a tool like that Sedona method to work through it.
And that really brings us right to the heart of it. Your feelings, they're talking to you right now. They're not just static or random noise. They are your personal guide, your compass, trying to point you toward what you really need. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. If you get really quiet for a moment and just listen, what are your emotions telling you today?